Welcome to the Diary of Discovery, the podcast where we delve deep into the human experience of healing and transformation. I'm your host, Jacky and each week we will sit down with inspiring individuals who have embarked on their own personal journeys of healing and self-discovery. From overcoming trauma to navigating life's challenges, our guests share their raw and honest stories, offering insights, wisdom, and hope to all who tune in. So grab your favorite cup of tea, find a cozy spot, and join us as we uncover the power of resilience, courage, and the pursuit of authenticity. This is the Diary of Discovery. Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. I am super excited to welcome a wonderful guest and friend today onto the podcast. So, as always, I'll hand straight over. Do you want to tell everyone who you are and where you are in the world?
Hi everyone, I'm Beth, and I'm in Cape Town. I own Wildflower Transformation Coaching, and I also have an NPC called She's a Wildflower.
Amazing. Okay, I'm so excited for this conversation today. So myself and Beth live like literally just down the road from each other. And it's gonna be so cool to have this conversation because I know a lot about your healing journey, and I think there's so many great things that we can share with people. In where you've come from and then where you're going as well. So this is going to be really good. So let's start at the beginning, as always, and give people a bit of context and a bit of background here. So,
Yeah.
do you want to tell people like what actually led to your healing moment? Like, what was it that kind of catalyzed you realizing that something had to change?
So I after school took like a gap year and ended up living overseas, and I thought that it was going to be 1 year, and it ended up being many years. And through my 20s, I went through many destructive behaviors, and then started working for quite a hectic corporate job, a lot of traveling, a lot of working long hours, work hard, play hard type vibes. And I got to my early 30s, and we had actually just moved back to South Africa. And I had this big burnout, and it was the time that I was like, okay, something has to change. And prior to the burnout, I had already started to like look at certain more spiritual things, more healing modalities, and how to heal myself. But it was all quite surface level up until that point, which had its purpose at the time, but I hadn't allowed myself to go much deeper. So I at that point also then decided I was going to leave my corporate job, because we were having my first child, and retrained at 7 months in coaching, and that kind of was the catalyst. So that burnout, having my daughter, and then leaving corporate were kind of the catalyst for my deeper healing journey.
Amazing. Okay.
Yeah.
So really, really good kind of like foundation. I think a lot of people go through this very similar
Mm.
corporate realizing it's not what they want, burning themselves out. Like we hear this story quite often. This is not this is not a new story.
Mm.
I think your way of approaching it is going to be the interesting bit that people really enjoy listening to. But as you were going through that, so as you kind of hit burnout, you decided to retrain, you had your first child, like you were doing all of these things. What did you have to get to know about yourself and like accept about yourself in order to go on this journey and go through?
So the first part of the healing journey was very much trying to fix myself, trying to fix what felt broken, because I had been very disconnected for many years. I didn't even really know who I was at that point. I was just playing a persona of like who I thought I should be in the world. And yeah, I think what ended up happening really was this burnout was more like a spiritual awakening than anything. And that's something I've been trying to teach people, is that often people going through burnouts is actually more than just a burnout. It's something that it's like an event that sparks something within you, and kind of pivot your path, because you have no other choice but to ask yourself the questions. And quite within a year of my healing journey, like it kind of came up that I'd been through a traumatic event that I had completely forgotten about, and had completely just taken it out of my memory. I even when like remembering it, I even saw the moment that I chose to actually forget what had happened to me. And it then made a lot of sense, like what everything else that unfolded afterwards in my life, because I had completely disconnected from my body. I'd become completely disembodied. And I think that for me, when I started to realize what had happened to me and started to be able to heal that, started to be the catalyst then for coming back into the body, like, because that's what trauma does, it takes you out, and yeah, so that was a big catalyst then for the deeper healing that needed to happen. However, how it happened was not great. It was kind of re-traumatizing. So it also, in hindsight, taught me a lot about how, myself as a healer, not to show up sometimes with your clients, like to be trauma informed, to understand like that, a lot of people have been through many things that they might not even remember, and we have to hold that very delicately, because remembering that really spiraled me for a little while. And it meant that my healing became more, like I say, trying to fix, as opposed to trying to love myself more, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes complete sense. And I think like again, I think it's really interesting because it always makes me think about this idea of like when you go through a healing journey or burnout or whatever you want to call it, something being dramatically wrong in your life and not feeling right. The societal pressure is to make it right, to fix what is not happening, to what is not working, to make it better. And there's a lot of pressure, especially when there's a lot of emotion involved, to not like upset everyone around you and to like continue that kind of like people please. I hear it like from all of our guests. There's like this very much like this like people pleasing nature into what we are going through and how we're going through it and what we like deem as acceptable for how we heal. And I think like there's a real need for, as you go through this process, to not re-traumatize, because I think so many people do, and then people get stuck in that trauma. And this is where you start to see like really high anxiety, panic attacks, like things that are, PTSD, like things that are additional add-ons to the original trauma that are then just re-traumatizing people in the cycle that they're in now. And a lot of people don't realize how easy it is to get stuck in that place, like how it's actually really simple to get stuck in that place and then spend ages going through that cycle while you're trying to heal from it. So I guess like could you talk to us a bit more about like those moments where it was really hard, those moments where you thought actually like you're not going to be able to do this, you're not going to be able to create the life that you want?
Uh, I think the hardest part came around that time, I've had other moments too, like I've been 7 years into this journey, and like within that, I was also training in all sorts of different things as well. So that in itself is also a lot of healing work. And I think this is something I would say is like we want to escalate it and get it done fast so that we can get where we think we should be, And again, that's not the purpose. The purpose is sometimes healing slowly is actually going to be much more, it's going to make things happen faster, as opposed to going straight diving into it. And actually, like you say, you dysregulate yourself, you end up like I had a couple of moments where I just felt like this rage came from over me. And like I mean, I was postpartum as well, so there was a lot of hormones involved in that too. But this rage that I started to feel just was all consuming, and it just came out all over the place, like in the car, like at home, just like this need to just like and I think a lot of women have a lot of suppressed rage. However, also just allowing it out without having someone to hold you within a safe container was really dangerous, actually. And there was some moments when I was just like, oh, I could just drive into this wall, which is very much like people have psychotic breaks sometimes if they're not held properly within the healing journey. And yeah, I think I've been through a lot of this stuff so I could learn also how to hold people in a better way, because really like it can be very dangerous actually for people's mental well-being, their spiritual well-being, and it can fracture you. And also I find a lot of people now then mistrust the healing spaces because they've been harmed by the people who were meant to hold them properly. So yeah, I think it's definitely something I've learned along the way, is being that, yeah, to hold it delicately. And now where I am in my healing journey now, I don't go constantly like, oh, I must heal that, oh, I must sort that out, what is this, what's that. I think in the beginning you very much go through that, like analyzing it from a mental perspective, and you want to kind of understand everything that you're feeling and everything that's moving through you. But some things are moving through you, and some things will need to be looked at, and it's like starting to know the difference between the two takes time. And I think when your journey starts to move from a mental space into a more embodied space, I think that's when the deeper healing starts to happen.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And I don't know, like I had a very similar experience in that very like I wanted to like logic my way out of it. I wanted to like do all the research and like do all the meditations, and like it was like this like game of like trying to just do as much as possible. And coming from burnout into depression and then trying to force myself to like do all of these things was exactly the opposite of what I needed. Like actually I needed to learn how to just be and exist. But it like there wasn't a role model for me at the time when I was going through this of somebody who was healed, of somebody who had gone through this journey, who had gotten to the other side. Like myself and my older sister were kind of going on a very sort of similar journey at a similar time. And obviously, like a lot of the traumas that happened to us as we were growing up and with like deaths in the family and stuff like that obviously affected both of us. So it's, it's nice that we kind of had that same sort of trajectory of healing, but we didn't really have any, yeah, like role models of what this could look like. And I think that is what a lot of people struggle with in the healing space now. And I think like what you're saying about like you've had that opportunity to go through your own journey and see how you can then become a better healer for the people that you'll go on to help, and like actually the work that you'll be doing. And I think like it's such a beautiful way, because like not everybody who goes on a healing journey is here to help other people heal.
Yeah,
Like some
true.
people were just here to do their own healing and, impact the immediate people right around them. And that's beautiful as well. But obviously, some people are here to go through these kind of like bigger, like have a bigger impact, do more of the things. And yeah, I mean, we'll definitely talk more about like the work in a moment. But before we get there, I guess like I always like to ask people like what was your big like perspective change or like outlook change? Like as you were going through, you've come from being like high corporate, like fast life, doing all the things, and then you've literally like changed your life like, over the course of your pregnancy. Like what outlook change or like belief change happened in you?
So in the beginning, I think it was just like very empowering to know that like you can heal and that you can, change your life and things like that. However, like deeper into my journey, like within the middle of it, actually, I had what I would call a second awakening. I had a miscarriage, and I think it was at that moment that I kind of realized that there was more deeper spiritual healing that needed to happen for me personally. And that's kind of when I also came across one of my main mentors work, and started to do a lot of deeper ancestral healing. And that also came through like watching Outlander, and all these little breadcrumbs came along the way. And I think when I started to do that, I started to change my whole perspective of the world, because I literally could start to look at the holes in history. I could start to see the holes in everything we'd been taught. I could start to see the signs and symbols that are coming through to us that we're often missing. And I think my journeys also came very much to then being a walker between two worlds, and that sort of deeper awareness of how how the unseen actually is very much making what is going on in the seen world happen, has literally changed my life. And in the beginning, you can fall into new age spirituality, and you can fall into a whole lot of stuff that kind of also let you play on the surface with the love and light and the fun things that make you feel good. But I think I was very lucky in my journey that one of my first mentors was not in that space and was actually more into African spirituality. And that kind of led me to understanding my own ancestors' Celtic roots, and finding another mentor in that path. And literally, it just changed the whole way I see the world, because now you can't unsee what you start to see when you start to see the pain of what we've been through as humanity, and how that has got us to where we are now. And with that knowledge, I think we have, especially now, like a big duty and responsibility to make big changes for the future generations. We're really at that pivotal moment and point where changes have to happen. And yeah, being able to see that is life-changing, and understand it and grow in that has been completely life-changing. Means a lot of everyone understands your path, but I've had to also come to terms with that, and be okay with that. It doesn't mean I have to disconnect myself from my family. It doesn't mean I have to disconnect myself from my friends. We don't all have to be on the same path to still love each other, but that has also been a journey. It went from around in this sort of circle and came back to a much deeper love and respect for everyone's different journeys that they're on.
Yeah, absolutely. I was chatting to somebody about this the other day, and saying like the relationships don't have to fracture, they just have to change.
Yeah.
Like, and I think when you're going on a healing journey, it is, especially with like family, where you've gone through a similar kind of trauma to a lot of those people, and you can kind of look at them and be like, oh my God, but that life can be so much better. Like, I just want you to be better. Like, oh my gosh, it can be really frustrating when people don't want to do their own healing and they don't want to go on this journey. But at the same time, the more that you heal and the more, I don't know, awakened that you get, the more you can kind of accept that actually everyone's on their own path, and it's not your space to force somebody to heal if they don't want to. And some people never will. Like, some people will go through their whole life on this earth and decide that they never want to. And that's also like has to be respected. And I do think, yeah, it's a really interesting thing. I found it really amazing at how much more accepting I could be of people, of their thought processes, of their emotions, of how they show up in the world, and the patterns, and like all of the decisions that they make. Like, I found it so much easier to be accepting of that in people once I had gotten to that point where I just accepted myself for who I was and just showed up how I wanted to and just like was who I am. It was like, actually, oh yeah, no, this is fine for everyone to just like do their thing wherever they are on that journey. Because I think like a lot of people as well think that healing is like a start end, we do the thing. And it just doesn't work like that. Like, we both know it's a constant, you're going to a deeper level, or something new is coming up, or like there's this constant kind of shift in the healing space. And I guess like for you, you said also you retrained in coaching like while you were pregnant. Like, so the burnout happened, you decided to retrain, and obviously just coaching is not what you do now. now, there's a bigger piece here that we're going to explore. So like, how did you go from like that first thing of like, oh, I'm going to be a coach, to like where you are now and like accepting the healer that you are?
So initially, one thing before I go on to that, I just wanted to say, like, with people on their path, like, one of the best things I was also told was to believe in people's greatness, and that everyone has the ability to heal. And what my healing path looks like and what someone else's healing path looks like is going to be very different to each other. So that has really changed my perspective on a lot of that. But so coming back to how I got to be calling myself now a healer, I suppose it's an interesting thing. Like, when I decided to retrain, I was like, what did I actually want to do with my life? Like, I had actually wanted to study psychology when I was younger, and I chose not to. I chose to take the gap year because I was traumatized. I was not in the right space. I was called too sensitive. I was one of those, like, I would cry if someone said boo. I was one of those people who deeply felt the world. And I think that decision was then, okay, well, am I going to go back and study psychology now? And I was like, actually, no, I'm going to look into coaching, because I had come across a coach that I'd been doing some work with before the sort of burnout happened and deciding to change directions. And I was like, okay, I could do that. And as my journey unfolded, it just started to become clear to me that there was more to what I was meant to be doing. And I think my healing journey itself unfolded that as well, because I, like I said, found my mentor, got a bit deeper into different types of spirituality. And I think the difference between someone who is a coach and someone who's a healer is that you use a different template, you use a different gifts, basically. And so I still use coaching within the work I do. I still mentor people and use coaching as a tool, but that's not all that I was meant to help people with, and I think it's using those gifts and also being able to bridge between the unseen and the seen. That is the difference between a coach and healer. And there are many, many, many coaches who are actually supposed to be healers, and they are going through this whole process of how to run a coaching business, how to do that, and it just doesn't stick and it doesn't work because there's something missing. And I think a lot of them know that, but to step into being a healer, a lot of us have a lot of healing that needs to be done around actually claiming that part of ourselves, because number one, the word itself has a lot of preconceived notions to it. Like, there's a box that the healer has of, like, what people think a healer is and what they look like, what they do. The religious implications as well for people who are deconstructing or who are still religious. There's definitely a lot around that space that people then have a little bit of, like, a aversion to stepping into that. And I definitely went through that. I had a big aversion of calling myself a healer, of stepping into being a healer. And yeah, the reluctant healer, basically, the wounded healer, it is a thing. We have to go through certain things to be able to claim that. And I think that's something I'm quite passionate about now, is there's so many people who are healers, but they're not wanting to call themselves that, and they're missing out on stepping into those gifts, because they're necessary for these times. They're necessary for where we are in this moment. So yeah, I think for me, I had to go through a big phase of releasing what it was that was holding me back from actually calling myself a healer, stepping into that work. And I'd known for a long time that there was something off, because I started up helping people with burnout, and I was doing all the things right, but it was really just like, this is not your path. Like, like, look at the people who are coming to you. Every person who has come to you so far is a healer themselves, like, or like they want to step into helping people. They community leaders, they like completely that don't fit the box of healer, but that is the template and the gifts that they have, and the more I started to see that, I was like, oh, okay, that is who I'm working with. And I kind of was accepting that I was working with these people. They were just finding me, but I never kind of put myself out there like that. So there was just a bit of a disconnect between that, like, so yeah, it's been an interesting journey, but I am now at the moment where I have, like, been, okay, I'm a healer. I'm going to own that, because I think me looking completely different to maybe the box of what a healer is going to help other people as well step into owning that template and working with it and using the gifts that they have that are needed now more than ever, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really interesting. Like we've been talking, this like theme of role models has been coming up so much recently in the podcasts that we've been recording, in conversations with clients. Like it's literally just been coming up everywhere for me at the moment. And I think like it's such a clear message that like sometimes you have to go first. Sometimes you have to be the person that creates the role model for everybody else. So if you don't look like the typical, or you don't fit the typical boxes, or you're not from the right background, that's inverted commas. You know, if you don't, you know, you're not the right gender or not the right sexuality or not the right whatever the construct is, I think that gives you even more reason as to why you should be stepping into these, you know, these role model roles, because it's exactly what the generations need to see. Like it's exactly what needs to happen. And it's so like it's literally so different. Like when you look at each of the generations and how much is becoming more acceptable with each generation that we go through. Like, actually, you look at that and you go, this is amazing. Like, we can have such a positive impact in the grand scheme of things if we do exactly that, step forward and go, actually, this might not be the typical or the normal, but I'm going to do it anyway, and I'm going to step into the space, and I know that that's what I'm here for. And I think there's a lot of people in our kind of generation, obviously we're of similar ages, so I think in our generation there's a lot of people who are here specifically to break those molds, to create those new role models and actually come away from those old stereotypes that we have had painted like so strongly, so strongly from generations before us. So I think that that's, you know, it's absolutely incredible, like in the work that you do. And I know at the beginning, obviously, you mentioned that you've got your own business and then you've also got the charity. Um, so like, how did that come about, like, as you were going through the process?
So like the business started obviously with retraining and deciding to leave corporates and everything, and it was quite a couple of years into my journey that like I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning and it was just like, you need to start this NPO, and like all these ideas of what this NPO was meant to be came through, and it was like healing for healers. I mean, I knew up already then that that's what this was about. And then interestingly, as everything unfolded, the people that were meant to work, you're never going to do this alone. And I think this has been a huge part of my journey, is accepting, allowing that help in, and allowing other people in, but also the spiritual support in, you know. And from that, like, it really just, the right people just came along our path. But it has been a very difficult path. I mean, we spent years trying to get PBO status, and we got that this year. And I suppose my passion is that there are so many healers out there that need their own healing, and many of it's not accessible to everyone as well. So there's many people who are also in underprivileged areas, in poverty, who need to be helped get out of that. And so a lot of what's come forward has also been there's a lot, like, healing doesn't just necessarily mean you'll work with people. Like, a lot of healers actually have other gifts that they try to monetize, but it's just so difficult to get the resources and the support. And so a lot of the work that we've been looking at is how do we support people? How do we help people get the resources they need? And how do we make healing more accessible? So yeah, that's my kind of passion project, and it's also been something I've really been reluctant on, because that now is like turning into a leader, which, you know, is in itself, like, it's you have to really work on your self-worth and be like, am I worthy to actually do these things, and to own that this is what I'm here to do in the world, you know. So there's definitely been a lot of like self-worth issues that came up along the way, and feeling undeserving of this, and feeling that this was bigger than me, and I've had to accept that it is bigger than me. I'm not meant to do it alone. It's meant to be something that is done with people who have kind of already found me, and I know more people will find our path along the way. So yeah, and then on my own business itself, like I said, I started off with the burnout, but I soon started to see that it was more for a lot of people a spiritual awakening, and that most people were not coming to me for burnout necessarily. They were coming to me because they needed deeper healing, and they were healers themselves, and they wanted to do the work so that they could start then going further down that path. So kind of saw that happening in front of my eyes, and kind of had to step up and be like, okay, how can I actually reach more people by actually owning this as what I'm actually doing, So
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I am yeah, I'm so excited for the charity. So excited for the work that it's gonna do, and I know it's gonna be such a huge thing. Yeah, I mean, everyone who knows me personally knows that closing of like financial gaps and education gaps and empowering women in South Africa is such a huge thing, like in my heart as well. So having a charity that leans in that same area but just in a slightly different way is, I think, just so incredible as well. So what advice would you give people who are listening, who are maybe starting their healing journey? Maybe they're coming from that little burnt out place that we all experienced. Um, what would your advice be for somebody going on a healing journey? How do they do it?
so number one, like, would be the intention. Like, start with the intention of your healing journey, because if it's coming from a space of trying to fix, like, it's going to be even more, it will burn you out even more. Like, I've been down that little rabbit hole, so really, we're not broken. I think healing is more about becoming more of who you actually are, remembering more of who you are, as opposed to having to be someone else, and be like, let go of stuff so that you could be better. Like, so really leaning into the intention of doing this because you want to understand yourself better and love yourself in a different way. Like, that for me is a better intention than fixing. Be prepared for grief. Like, I think this is not spoken about enough, but like, when you go on a healing journey, you will have loads of grief that comes up, and it can be named as other things, like, because there's different phases of the grief that we go through, and it can definitely be named different things, and it's actually grief. It's the grief of, like, the life we could have had, the grief of what we actually went through. Like, there's so much grief that comes up along the journey and in everyone's lives, and I think specifically now, everyone is going through deep grief. But I think the more you actually allow that grief, it will change your life, because it really is the medicine of our times. It will open your heart in ways that, like, only you will know once you've allowed it. So I think that would be the other thing, is allow yourself to grieve. And then thirdly, like, just be discerning. Like, trust your intuition on, like, things that feel off. If it feels off and everyone else is doing it, don't go down that path. Really trust the breadcrumbs that get sent along your path. Like, I think that's been the biggest thing for my healing journey, is like, I trusted the little bits of information that came through all sorts of different places, and I followed that, and it led me to finding myself and finding more than I can imagine, because once you find yourself, you find the connection to everything that is. So yeah, it's a beautiful path. And don't try to do, like, at some point you can't do it alone. I think we need to start to realize that we need community, we need conscious community. Like, that is where healing happens. We need each other to heal. We do need each other to heal. So at some point in your journey, you'll know, like, when it's time to actually find that and reach out and look for those people, because we need each other. Yeah.
Absolutely. I love
Yeah.
that. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. It is so beautiful. So, okay, final question then. And this is by far my favorite question on the podcast. I know everyone else likes listening to the advice and all the good things, but I like to hear your next level of healing. So,
Mm.
like, what is it that you're focusing on? What is it that you're working on? I love for people to just see that this isn't a kind of like one and done, and it's just like an evolving, different way of living life. So, yeah, what does that look like for you at the moment?
Okay, so yeah, where I'm at in my healing journey, like it's definitely been a lot more of a reclamation happening. So like a lot of things have been like an alignment, knowing, starting to make sure that I know what I'm working with, being also very discerning. So it's really been like ancestral in a lot of ways. So I think right now, like we're going on an ancestral trip, like that has been on the cards for a while, and it's come to now that like it's time to go. So visiting sort of different sacred sites, different things in the land. Like my healing now has come to much more of like how are we also going to heal the land, how are we going to heal um what because a lot of it's just like the plants and things that come with you as you go deeper into your gifts and everything like that. What is the land telling us that we're not listening to? So a lot of my works now are leaning much more into understanding deeper mysteries, I would say. And it's exciting. I'm actually in a point of my healing journey where it doesn't feel like work anymore. It's just become part of my life. Like I am now curious. I'm now open to what comes across my path. I'm open to also being wrong and learning new things. I'm open to letting go of the perfection of everything. And a big part of my journey and what I also want to teach others is substance over aesthetic. That is a huge thing. Is like there's a lot of healing out there that is just like surface level. So really looking at the work that actually has meat to it, and as opposed to just looks pretty. Yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at on my path. And yeah, it's been interesting to see how it unfolds. So yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Oh, I love that. I love that. Yeah. I think that ancestral, like going on an ancestral trip and going to sacred places, and there's such magic in
Mm.
going through that like lineage. And I always remember I think it was 2 birthdays ago. I had this like I really just wanted to go to a place in South Africa called McGregor. Um, and I was like, I don't know why, like I just really want to go, like I really want to go. And I wasn't sure if we were gonna go, and it was like this whole thing. And then literally like we were off for a couple of days over my birthday. And the day before our holiday started, I like looked up an Airbnb and I said to my husband, like, we're going. I was like, I don't care, we're going. Like, we need to go. And like once I'd like booked it and I was like, okay, we're going. I was chatting to one of my friends, and she was like, oh yeah, there's loads of ley lines like in
Yes.
McGregor. Like it
Yeah.
is like the central point in Africa of like all the ley lines like meet there. She was like, it's really interesting that you want to go there. And I was like, oh, oh, who knew? And like it was such an amazing like weekend away. Like we had such a good time, and it was like I just felt so at peace while we were there. Like it was such an amazing thing. And it's really interesting how like sometimes your body just knows. The land just
Yes.
knows. Like it just
It
knows where you
does.
need to be and knows what you need to do. And like I do think that thing of like just like following the breadcrumbs and just like going where you're
You
supposed to
feel
be, I think
called.
is
Exactly.
yeah,
Yes.
there's
Yes.
something really, really magical about that. But yeah, I just like, yeah, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, for sharing your story with us. I think there's so much for people to really kind of like understand that deeper
Mm.
level of what it actually is. And I really kind of resonate with that. Like healing no longer feels like a hard job anymore. Like it just feels like
Mm.
part of who I am. Like I absolutely love that idea because it's definitely how I feel as well. So yeah, thank you so much for being part of this and sharing. And it's been so wonderful to have
Mm.
you.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah. And Yeah, follow the breadcrumbs. That's it. Even if you do just that, like your life will never be the same again. So
Follow the breadcrumbs. What a way to end a podcast. I love it so much. Thank you so much, Beth.
Thank you for listening to another inspiring episode of the Diary of Discovery. If you found value in today's conversation, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and share it with your friends, family, or anyone else you think might benefit from the stories of hope and transformation. Your feedback means the absolute world to us, so please take a moment to leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your reviews help us to reach even more listeners and continue to bring this meaningful content to the world. Until next time, remember, your healing journey is valid. You are never alone, and you have the strength to get through this. Keep shining bright, and we'll see you in the next episode of the Diary of Discovery.